Today we're going to be reviewing for the Unit 8 test. So this is a practice exam. This one is Form B at the bottom. Okay, right here it says Form B. The extra review that I posted for you says Form C on it. So if you're watching this video with me and following along, make sure that the review that you printed out says Form B on the bottom. Form C has different questions. Okay. Let's start with number 1. We want to match the graph to the correct equation. First thing that you should be noticing is that this is a frowny face, which means negative a value. So you can eliminate anything that doesn't have a negative a value. That's a positive 1, that's a positive 1/2, right? So now the last thing that you need to be able to look at here, you can't really tell the difference between whether this is skinny or fat. So what we want to look at is the y-intercept. Remember that the c value is your y-intercept. It is down here below the x-axis, which means it's going to be negative. So you're going to select the equation that has the negative y-intercept, okay? And that's how we do number 1. Nice and easy. Number 2, in terms of a and b, the zeros of the function y equals 1/2 times x plus 4b times x minus 2a are which of the following? So what we're going to do is we're going to solve for the zeros for these two, solving them in terms of a and b. So all that means is take your function. Remember that the 1/2, when you're finding a zero, any number that's right outside doesn't matter at all, right? So we're going to take our x plus 4b and our x minus 2a, and we're going to find the zeros. So we set it equals 0. We break it up. Do x plus 4b equals 0 and x minus 2a equals 0, and just solve for x. So I would subtract, just imagine like this was a number, subtract it from both sides. So x will be negative 4b, and on this side we'll be adding 2a to both sides. X will be 2a. So matched up with the one that matches your answer, negative 4b and 2a is choice 1. Try not to get thrown off by this question. It's way easier than it looks. Okay, number 3. Which equation below represents the parabola x squared plus 8x plus 5 written in vertex form? So if we have to write something in vertex form, then we're going to be completing the square, right? So how do I complete the square? I take my middle term and I divide it by 2. And then I square it. And then I'm adding and subtracting that number. So I get y equals x squared plus 8x. Now I'm going to add my 16. That makes my trinomial. Now I'm also going to subtract my 16, and never forget your c value on the end. Okay, remember the point of adding and subtracting the same number is so that you're undoing what you did, keeping the balance, right? So here's my perfect square trinomial. I replace this with the number that I squared, which is 4, so it's x plus 4 squared, and then negative 16 plus 5 is negative 11. This is my vertex form, so that would be choice 3. Numero 4. The quadratic function g of x is shown in the table below for the integer values on the interval 2 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 7. What's the value of g of x when x is equal to 7? So what we need to do is note that this is a quadratic function, right? You don't have to do any work here besides locate where your turning point is. All you have to do is see, where does it appear that the numbers start to repeat? Right here is the last number that's on its own, and then I can see it starts to repeat. So if this is my turning point, everything mirrors. So if this is 2, then this should also be 2. And that's it. No actual work for that, okay? Just find your turning point and look, and you know that a quadratic function after the turning point, on either side of the turning point mirrors the value. Number 5, which of the following is a solution set to the equation x squared minus 6x minus 40 equals 0? So all you're going to do is solve this by finding the zeros. Okay, so we're going to double bubble this because this has a leading coefficient of 1. So I'm going to be thinking, what are the factors of negative 40? That will multiply to negative 40 and add up to negative 6. So because the middle term is negative, I know that the larger number is going to be negative. So I can try 10 and 4. Negative 10 times 4 will give me negative 40. Negative 10 plus 4 will give me negative 6. So that's going to be it. So x minus 10, x plus 4. And now we solve by setting each side equal to 0. X minus 10 equals 0. X plus 4 equals 0. Add 10 to both sides, so my first 0 is 10. Subtract 4 over here, so my second 0 is negative 4. Written as a solution set, the smaller one comes first, so negative 4, 10. And that is choice 4. Okay? Next page. Okay, number 6. We have f of x is equal to x squared, shown graphed along with the function g of x. Which of the following could be a correct equation for g of x? So f of x is x minus 2. So this is all about when we shifted our parabolas. We want to think about how I would have gotten from here to here. The first thing you might notice is that it's flipped over, right? So one thing we need to know is that it's going to be negative. So it's not going to be this one for sure. Now we just have to decide whether the negative is going to be outside parentheses or just in front of the negative x. Just in front of the x squared. So we need to figure out what happened from here to here. It has shifted over to the right. So if you forgot what your shifting rules were, going right to left, right or left, that's inside the parentheses with x. Right, so if it's right, remember it was the opposite of what you thought. So it's going to be x minus something. And left is the opposite of what you thought, so it goes plus, so it'll be x plus something. Shifting up or down was outside parentheses. So it would be, like, of course, this would be squared. It would be something like x squared plus for up and x squared minus for down. Okay, so if this shifted to the right, then that means it's got to be inside of parentheses and it's got to be a minus. So you take a look, and the only one that matches that, this one was, we already eliminated it, and it's a plus sign, which means it'll be going to the left anyway. This is our only option here. Okay, so this could be the equation. It shifted to the right, so it has the x minus, and then it was flipped over, which makes it negative. So choice 3 is your answer. Number 7, which of the following represents the range of the function y equals negative 1/2 times x plus 10 squared plus 14? So what we need to do is in order to find the range, we need to find the turning point, okay? And we just need to be sure of whether this is a maximum or a minimum, so we know if the range is going to be going up or down. So this is a negative, right? So frowny face, right? So our turning point is at the top here. So let's find the turning point. Remember, it's the opposite of what's in here. So that's negative 10, and it's the same as what's here, positive 14. So if that's my turning point, that means that the range is beginning at that y value, 14, and it's going down forever. Okay, so y is going to be less than or equal to 14. Choice 4. Number 8. A rectangle has a length that is 1 foot less than twice its width. If the area of the rectangle is 91 square feet, which of the following equations could be used to solve for the width? So, the length is 1 foot less than twice the width, right? Obviously, we're written in x's, so I'm going to change this, but I figured we'd just write it like this first to start off, okay? So that means that the length is really 2x minus 1. So remember that area is equal to length times width, right? So if the area is 91, we're going to do the length times the width. The length is 2x minus 1, and the width is x. So we do x times 2x minus 1, and that's equal to 91. So we're going to actually multiply this out, and then we're going to set it equal to 0 so that we can find, well, we're not going to actually solve it, but x times 2x will be 2x squared minus 1 times x is x, is equal to 91, and we would subtract 91 so that we could get it equal to 0, and our equation would be 2x squared minus x minus 91 equals 0. And that would be the equation we could use, which is choice 1. Okay. Number 9, which of the following is the turning point of the parabola whose equation is x minus 3 times x minus 11? Now, if you remember this lesson, what we talked about was that the turning point was going to be halfway between the two zeros, exactly. So what you can do is you can locate the two zeros, right? So the first 0 is going to be 3, the second 0 is going to be 11, and you can find the halfway point between those. So to find that, you can do it in your head, or you can do the average. So you can do 11 plus 3 divided by 2, which is 7. That's the x coordinate. Okay, and then from there you don't have to do any more work because there's only one that has an x coordinate of 7. But if you needed to, you would just plug in 7 back into your equation. 7 minus 3, 7 minus 11, which would give you 4 times negative 4, which would give you the negative 16. Okay? Number 10, which of the following is the solution set of the equation shown below? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to solve this by pulling out the binomial that they have in common. So we have 5, I'm just going to rewrite it, 5x times x minus 4 plus 2 times x minus 4 equals 0. Remember that factoring isn't always with just numbers. It could be a whole binomial, right? So we're going to factor out the x minus 4 over here, and then what's left is 5x plus 2, so that's my second binomial. And now I can set them each equal to 0, and I can find my solutions. So x minus 4 equals 0, and 5x plus 2 equals 0. So this one we're adding 4 to both sides. X is equal to 4 is 1, 0. And we're going to subtract 2. 5x equals negative 2. Divide by 5, both sides. X is equal to negative 2/5. So my two zeros are negative 2/5 and 4. And that's choice 2. Okay? And those are part 1 questions. Okay, so for part 2, number 11, we're going to solve the following equation for all values of x. So now that we know how to deal with quadratics, we know we're not just solving this by using inverse operations. We're going to find the zeros. So this is not a trinomial, so what we can do is we can try to factor out a GCF. So what does the 21 and the 7 have in common? A 7. And x squared and x, you take out the lower exponent, which is x. So I'm going to factor out 7x here. So remember, you're going backwards. What times 7x would give me the 21x squared? And that would be 3x, because 7 times 3 gives me the 21. X times x gives me the x squared. Okay, and then what would I multiply 7x by to get 7x? That would just be 1, is equal to 0. Make sure that you factored correctly by ensuring that these do not have another GCF. Okay, and now we just set each one equal to 0 to find our answer. Okay, so this one, technically you're dividing by 0, so your first 0 is actually 0. And here, we're going to subtract 1 first. 3x equals negative 1. Divide by 3. Our second 0 is negative 1/3. So written as a solution set, you can box these like this if you want, but written as a solution set would be negative 1/3, comma 0. And that's our answer. Number 12, we have a partial list of values for a quadratic function f of x, shown below. Here it is. Determine all the solutions to the equation f of x equals 0 and explain or show how you arrived at your answer. So, what we want to do is we want to look at where y is equal to 0, right? So remember that f of x is y, so you can see that's here. This involves absolutely no work, very similarly to the one we did in the part 1 questions. So this is a quadratic function. We know it's going to have a turning point, and at that turning point, mirrored on the opposite sides, are the same values. So what you need to do is locate your turning point, whereas the values start to repeat. Here, right here is your turning point, okay? So the values repeat on opposite sides. So that means if there's a 0 here, we can figure out the 0 on the other side, okay? So 1 and 3, 0 and 4, -1 and 5. So now the next one's going to be -2 is going to have the same value as 6, which is 27. And then -3 is going to have the same value as 7, which would be 0. Okay, so those are your two zeros. So x equals -3 and x equals 7. And you just explain this, you can say, because values mirror each other on opposite sides of the turning point, we know x equals -3 will have the same y value as x equals 7, which is 0. Okay, anything similar to that works, okay? Let's do part 3 questions. Number 13, we're going to put this in vertex form by completing the square and then state the coordinates of the actual vertex. So make sure you guys read carefully. Don't just leave it in vertex form. They also want you to say what the coordinates are. So we're going to complete the square. Now, take a look at what it is. The a value is not equal to 1. There was quite a few people missing from this live lesson that we did, and I hope that you know how to do this and are a pro, because it's a very important skill. We don't complete the square until we have a 1 here instead of a 5. So your first step is always going to be to factor out that number from the first 2 terms only, okay? So we're taking out the 5, so that leaves us with x squared minus 6x, okay? And then we have our plus 9 at the end. So we're going to complete the square from here. So we're going to look at the -6. We divide it by 2. We get -3 and square it, giving us 9. So to the front half, we're adding on the 9. However, when we subtract our 9 here, we have to account for this 5 that we multiplied by, so we're going to subtract by 5 times 9, and then we add the other 9 at the end. And this 9 has nothing to do with that 9, that's from up here. Okay? And now I can complete the square, keeping my 5 outside. Remember, you're using this number, so it's x minus 3 squared. And then this is -45 plus 9, which gives you -36. So this is the first part of your answer. This is your equation written in vertex form. And now your turning point will be opposite of what's inside there, +3, same as what's here, -36. Okay, and that's your answer. Okay guys, the last page of the review. We're given this expression below. We're first going to write the expression as the product of 2 binomials. Please don't try to multiply here. Product of 2 binomials means we're going to write this with just 2 bubbles, and that's it. So what you want to do is you want to factor out something, and hopefully you guys are starting to notice this occurring a lot more frequently. You have the same binomial here and here. So we're going to factor that out. Whoop, pull it out. And be very careful, because what we have here is 3x plus 1. But this is minus x minus 7. So this is going to be minus x, and then double negative plus 7. Okay, and we're going to just combine the like terms inside there. So we have x minus 3, and then we have 3x minus x, which is 2x, and 1 plus 7, which is 8, so 2x plus 8. Okay, that's your first part of the answer. The value x equals 3 is one of the zeros of the expression, right? You can see it's here. What's the other? And show how you arrived at your answer. So, we have the x minus 3 and the 2x plus 8, and we set it equal to 0. We already know this one is x equals 3, they're telling us, right? So we're going to find this one. 2x plus 8 equals 0. Subtract 8 from both sides. 2x equals negative 8. Divide by 2. X is negative 4. Make sure when it says show how you arrived at your answer, make sure you show all your work. All right, number 15. The quadratic shown graphs below has the form y equals x squared plus bx plus c. We are going to determine the values of b and c and show how we got our answers. So this is like what we did in the last lesson, where we are using the zeros to help us figure out the original equation. In this case, it's not as complicated as the ones we were doing. So you can see the first 0 is negative 2. So I know one 0 is negative 2, and the other 0 is at 6. Okay, so I know that's telling me that my original equation would have had to be x plus 2 in order to get negative 2, and x minus 6 in order to get a positive 6. Okay, so now in order to put it back in the standard form here, I'm going to actually multiply. So this gives me y equals x squared minus 6x plus 2x minus 12. And of course, feel free to use box method if you prefer. Just find FOIL much faster. X squared, negative 6x plus 2x is negative 4x minus 12. That's your original equation. And just be careful, they're asking us for b and c. This is testing your knowledge of the form. B is going to be negative 4. Remember, always include signs. And c is going to be negative 12. And that's your answer. Over what interval is this function increasing? So from here to here, it's decreasing, right? And from this point up, it's increasing. So remember that when we're talking about increasing and decreasing, we never include the point where it turns, because at the point where it starts turning, it's neither increasing or decreasing. So we're talking about an interval which is going from left to right, so that's your x value. So it's starting at 2, and it's increasing, going on for infinity. You could use infinity here, but much easier to just say when x is greater than 2, okay, because we're not including the 2. So x is greater than 2. Now, technically, I'll just say 2 to infinity is also a possibility, okay? But I know you guys mostly prefer this way. All right, let's wrap it up with our part 4 question. Oh, yeah. A square with unknown side length x has one side extended by 3 inches and the other side extended by 4 inches. The area of the overall rectangle is 110 square inches. Write an equation that could be used to solve for x. So, don't let this confuse you, okay? This is so much easier than it looks. They even give you the diagram, right? You started off with x, now you're adding 3. Okay, you're adding 4 to this side. So, area, just throwing it out there, guys, area we know is length times width, right? So, if we know that the length and the width are both extended like this, we have our whole equation. So the area is going to be the length, which let's say is x plus 3 times the width, which is x plus 4, is equal to 110. Okay, and that's the answer to the first part. Explain how you arrived at your equation, or how it models the stated situation. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Holy Hannah. Okay, so this is obviously going to vary based on how you guys explain, but all you really need to say is after adding 3 and 4 inches to the two sides, the lengths and width are x plus 3 and x plus 4, since we know area equals length times width, and the area was 110 inches squared. I multiplied x plus 3 and x plus 4 and set it equal to 110. Now, mine is very, very detailed here. Make sure you actually explain when you're asked to explain. Don't just say, length times width, or I know that I added 3 and 4. Make sure it's detailed enough. It doesn't have to be as detailed as mine. But if it's not enough detail, think to yourself, this is a 6-point question, so each one of these is 2 points. So a 2-point explanation needs to be, more than a few words, okay? I'll read to you what Kirk has in the answer key. After adding the additional inches to both sides, the lengths of the two sides of the larger rectangle are x plus 4 and x plus 3. Since the area of the entire rectangle is 110 square inches, we set the product of these two dimensions equal to 110. So it's almost identical to what I wrote, and I actually wasn't even looking at that, so that's kind of funny. So anything like that, okay guys? Now finally what we're going to do is we're going to solve for x. Instead of finding the length and the width, we're just solving for x, so be careful. Again, make sure you always know what you're looking for. So we have x plus 3 times x plus 4 equals 110. So what we want to do is first we want to be able to set this equal to 0. I can't just subtract this though. So I actually have to multiply first. So this is x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 12 equals 110, okay? And I'm going to combine my middle terms and get that 7x, okay? And I am going to subtract, let's subtract 110 from both sides so that I can get my equation equal to 0. This is going to end up giving me negative 98 here. Equals 0. Now let me just start back up here. Okay, now it might take you a second to find these factors here, but it's a it's not oh my gosh, I can't speak. It's A is equal to 1 here, okay? So you don't have to worry about grouping or anything crazy. You can just double bubble it. It might take you a second to figure out the factors in 98 that will add up to 7, but it won't take long. And once you mess around with it a little bit, you'll find that it's 14 times 7, negative 7. 14 times negative 7 is going to give you negative 98 and add up to positive 7. So this will be x plus 14, x minus 7. And now we just solve. X plus 14 equals 0, x minus 7 equals 0. I subtract 14 from both sides, and I get x equals negative 14, and add 7 to both sides, x equals 7. So there could only be one value of x, right? We're talking about length here, so it cannot be negative. Okay, so x is equal to 7 is your answer. You can write it down here if you want. What we usually write is that we reject it. You can even say why length cannot be negative. Okay, and that's it. That's the whole test, guys. Make sure you show as much work as you can on these because there's a lot of room for teeny tiny mistakes, and if you have 0 work, I will not be able to help you very much with points. All right, guys, have fun reviewing.